So my name is Meredith Blake, and this is the story of the night I realized my family never saw me as one of their own. I arrived at my sister's wedding dressed in a navy blue gown, clutching a simple gift bag and the tiniest shred of hope that maybe, just maybe, things would be different this time. The venue was stunning, a 5-star ballroom in downtown Chicago with marble floors, golden chandeliers, and flower arrangements that probably cost more than my monthly rent. From the outside, it looked like a fairy tale, but I didn't belong in this story. A wedding planner with a clipboard and a dazzling fake smile greeted me at the entrance. "Name?" she chirped. "Meredith Blake," I replied, steady and polite. Her smile faltered just slightly as she flipped through the seating chart. I saw it in her eyes before she spoke the pity. "Ah, yes, you're seated just over here," she said, handing me a place card and pointing toward a hallway outside the main reception area. I blinked. "Outside?" She nodded with that same tight smile. "Yes, just along the corridor near the coat racks." I glanced at the large seating chart beside her. My parents, Charles and Margaret Blake, were at the head table. My sister Rachel and her new husband, every friend, co-worker, distant cousin, they all had a seat inside. But me, not even close. I approached my mother, who was adjusting Rachel's veil. "Mom, can I talk to you for a second?" She barely glanced at me. "Now's not a good time, Meredith. Can't you see we're busy?" "It'll just take a moment," I said, quieter. With a sigh, she stepped aside. Rachel didn't move, just stared at me with a knowing smirk. "I'm seated in the hallway," I said. Her mother laughed as if I was being ridiculous. "We had to prioritize close family, sweetheart." "I am close family," I said. "You're overreacting. Be grateful you're here." Those words burned. Grateful for being shoved out of sight, for being treated like an afterthought. I didn't argue. I didn't cry. Instead, I looked down at the place card in my hand and knew I wasn't going to sit in that hallway. Not this time. The sting I felt that night wasn't just about the wedding. It wasn't just about a seat in the hallway. It was the culmination of years, decades of being pushed aside. I used to think I was imagining it, that maybe I was being too sensitive, that my sister Rachel just needed more attention because she was younger, more emotional, more delicate, that I was strong enough to be ignored. But the truth hit me 3 years ago, like a punch to the chest. I had gone home for the holidays. I wasn't living far, just an hour away, but I rarely visited unless I had to. My old bedroom still existed, kind of. Dusty bookshelves, a few high school photos on the wall, the trophies I'd won but no one ever mentioned. While my mother cooked one of her elaborate meals for Rachel's visit, I wandered through the house, ending up in my parents' bedroom. I wasn't snooping, not really. I was just killing time. That's when I saw a small leather-bound notebook half hidden in my mother's nightstand drawer. Curiosity got the better of me. I opened it and found page after page of neatly handwritten notes, memories, observations, lists, all about Rachel. Her birthdays, her favorite foods, the names of her high school friends, gifts she'd loved, gifts she'd pretended to love, the time she broke her wrist at gymnastics, the time she got a bad grade and cried herself to sleep, her breakup with her college boyfriend. Every detail, every emotion, every nuance. I flipped through it all, searching, hoping for even a single page about me. There was nothing. Not a mention, not a note, not even a birthday. I stood there holding that book like it was proof, and in a way, it was. Proof that I had always been invisible. When my mother walked in and saw me with it, she didn't even flinch. "Oh, that. I'd just like to keep track of things for Rachel," she said casually. "You've always been so independent, Meredith. I never had to worry about you." As if that was a compliment. As if that explained why there wasn't a single word about her other daughter. That moment never left me. It etched something deep into my bones. That no matter how hard I tried, I would always be second place, or worse, nothing at all. And now, sitting me in a hallway at Rachel's wedding. It wasn't just a mistake. It was the latest chapter in a story I'd been trying to rewrite my whole life. I stood there for a while, still holding the place card like it might suddenly change. But it didn't. My name is still printed in that elegant font, and my seat was still out in the hallway. I looked around the ballroom, guests chatting, photographers snapping photos, servers moving like clockwork. The celebration was in full swing. And I was a shadow on its edge. But I wasn't ready to let it go, just yet. I walked up to Rachel. She looked stunning in her wedding dress, ivory satin, pearl buttons, hair swept into a soft bun that made her look like she'd stepped out of a bridal magazine. She saw me coming. Her smile widened into something that wasn't quite kind. A smirk. That kind of smirk you give when you know you've won. "Hey Meredith," she said sweetly, "everything okay?" I held her gaze. They seated me in the hallway. Her brows lifted in mock surprise. "Seriously? That's awful." I waited. "But you know how it is," she continued. "Weddings are chaos, so many details to manage. People get misplaced. Don't take it personally." Except I was supposed to take it personally. That was the point. Her eyes sparkled not with innocence but satisfaction. I turned back to my mother, who was watching the exchange with mild disinterest. "You really think it's okay to seat me outside?" I asked. She let out a light sigh, like I was being exhausting. "Meredith, don't turn this into a thing. It's Rachel's big day." "This isn't a thing, it's respect." "You're being dramatic," she said, her tone clipped. "Be grateful you're even invited." Grateful. That word again. Grateful for what? For being tolerated? For being excluded with a smile? I didn't answer, not right away. Then, from behind me, a quiet voice broke through the noise. "That's an interesting arrangement." I turned to see a tall, poised woman in a sleek navy dress holding a glass of champagne. She didn't introduce herself. She didn't need to. I knew who she was. Celesta Morgan, the groom's mother. She looked at me for a long moment, then glanced at Rachel, then back at me. Something flickered behind her calm eyes. She saw what was happening. And I had the strange feeling that for the first time in a long time I wasn't alone. Celesta Morgan didn't say much after that first glance. But she didn't have to. There was something in her stillness that said more than words ever could. A quiet, deliberate observation. A woman who had seen enough in her life to spot cruelty dressed as tradition. She raised her glass to her lips, took a slow sip, and then drifted back into the crowd. I stood there alone again, but this time something felt different. Like a match had been lit, and it was only a matter of time before the flame found something to catch. I wandered toward the bar, half tempted to leave. But then I saw him. Dominic. The groom. Rachel's new husband. He stood off to the side, away from the laughter and cameras, holding a whiskey glass he wasn't drinking. His eyes weren't on the crowd or the dance floor. They were locked on me. We'd never been close, polite maybe. A few brief conversations over holidays. He was always courteous, but quiet, like he was still figuring Rachel out, even as they got engaged. Now, he looked like someone who had just realized the ground beneath him might be hollow. He walked over slowly. "Meredith," he said. I nodded. "Dominic." A pause. "You okay?" he asked, voice low. I gave a small shrug. "Depends on your definition." He glanced over his shoulder toward the head table where Rachel laughed, basking in the glow of her curated spotlight. Then he turned back to me, jaw tight. "I need to ask you something," he said. I raised an eyebrow. Is this a polite wedding chat or something else? His eyes didn't blink. "Does Rachel ever talk about me when I'm not around, different than when she's with me?" That was the moment. The split in the ice. I could lie. I could protect him, protect her, or protect myself. But then I remembered the hallway, the smirk, the notebook with nothing in it about me. I looked at his whiskey glass. "You might want to take a sip first." He didn't hesitate. He downed it in one shot. I spoke slowly. "I don't think you know Rachel the way you think you do." He said nothing, just exhaled long and quiet like he already suspected. "She's been different," he finally said. "Controlling, private, like there are sides she doesn't want me to see." He wasn't wrong. But before I could answer, a presence approached. Celeste had returned. And this time she wasn't just watching. She was holding her phone. And I knew something was about to change. Celeste didn't speak right away. She simply stood there, one hand holding her clutch, the other holding her phone. Her posture was calm, too calm. The kind of stillness that comes just before an earthquake. Dominic looked at her, confused. "Mom? I believe you should see this," she said quietly. He took the phone. And then everything shifted. His eyes scanned the screen, slowly at first, then faster, each swipe cut deeper. His face didn't show confusion anymore. it was something worse, a dawning realization, followed by disbelief, followed by a kind of grief that doesn't make a sound, it just caves in quietly from the inside. I didn't ask what he saw, but I had a feeling. Celeste's voice was soft. Your wife-to-be doesn't just dislike me, Dominic, she disrespects you. She disrespects all of us. He kept reading. The texts were from Rachel, screenshots from group chats, messages to her stylist, to her maid of honor, to some friend from college. They weren't vague. They were venom. Rachel complaining about Celeste being a controlling old woman who should just sign the checks and stay out of the way. Rachel laughing about how Dominic eats out of her hand and how she's training him to be the husband she needs. But the worst one. A message Rachel sent just 2 days before the wedding. Once we're married, I'll have access to everything. He's too eager to prove he's not like his dad, it makes him blind. All I have to do is smile until the ink dries. Dominic's hand clenched around the phone. His mouth parted slightly, like he wanted to speak but no words came out. Celeste placed a hand on his shoulder. We don't have to do this here, she said gently. There's a room we can use, somewhere private. Dominic nodded. Without a word, we moved. Someone must have alerted the rest of the family because within minutes, we were all in a private lounge just off the ballroom. The music faded behind closed doors, but tension replaced it quickly. Rachel walked in last, her gown brushing the floor like she was gliding into a royal court. What is this? She asked, her tone sugary and annoyed. Are we seriously doing this now? Celeste stood tall. Yes, we are. Rachel turned to Dominic. Baby, whatever she told you. Don't, he said, voice low. Just don't. Margaret, my mother, stepped forward. Can we please not make a scene? It's a wedding, for heaven's sake. It's not a scene, Celeste replied coldly. It's a truth that's been ignored long enough. I stayed quiet. Because this wasn't my moment. Not anymore. This was the reckoning. And it had finally arrived. For a long moment, no one moved. Rachel stood in the center of the room, arms crossed, eyes narrowed like a queen defending her crown. Dominic looked like a man who had just stepped out of a dream and into a nightmare. Celeste stood tall, unwavering, like the storm she had chosen to become. My mother? Eh? She was already smoothing the situation, as always. This is all just a misunderstanding, Margaret said quickly, forcing a smile. Weddings are stressful. Everyone says things they don't mean. Celeste raised an eyebrow. Rachel meant every word. She repeated herself in every message. Rachel scoffed. This is ridiculous. You're really going to believe some screenshots taken out of context? Dominic didn't answer. My mother reached for his arm. Sweetheart, please. Rachel's just been under pressure. You know how emotional she gets. Stop. The word was quiet, almost too quiet. But it cut through the room like thunder. Everyone turned. It was my father. Charles Blake had always been the quiet one, present but never involved, a man who read newspapers at breakfast and let Margaret make the rules. He'd never raised his voice in my memory, never contradicted my mother. Until now. He stepped forward, his face pale, voice calm but heavy. Margaret, enough, he said. You've protected Rachel her whole life, and look what it's turned her into. Rachel froze. I did too. You've let her believe she could say anything, do anything, and there'd never be consequences, he continued. Well, now there are. He turned toward me. And Meredith has been right all along. My breath caught in my throat. The room went still. Rachel's face contorted. Dad, are you seriously taking her side? He didn't even look at her. I'm not taking sides. I'm finally telling the truth. For a second, no one spoke. Not Dominic, not Celeste, not my mother. I stared at my father, trying to memorize the moment, trying to understand how it had taken a lifetime to hear the words I'd been desperate for. He had chosen to speak. He had chosen me. And somehow, that small act carried more weight than I ever imagined. Rachel wasn't used to being challenged. Not by Dominic, not by her in-laws, and definitely not by our father. Her face flushed, but it wasn't embarrassment, it was rage. The kind of fury that bubbles up when a carefully curated image starts to crack. You're all turning against me because of her? She hissed, jabbing a finger in my direction. No, Celeste said calmly, swirling her champagne. We're turning away from you because we finally see you clearly. Rachel flinched, just slightly, but I saw it. For the first time, she realized control was slipping from her hands. She turned back to Dominic, her voice trembling now. You can't believe this. You can't let her manipulate you. This is supposed to be our day. Dominic looked at her, really looked, as if he was seeing her for the first time. I was ready to build a life with you, he said quietly, but I don't even know who you are. Rachel's lips parted, but no sound came out. My mother stepped in again, always the fixer. Let's not be hasty, this can be sorted out. Rachel's intentions were calculated. Celeste interrupted, sharp as glass, manipulative, self-serving. I was under pressure, Rachel snapped. I didn't mean everything I said. Dominic took a slow breath. You meant enough. And then he turned to me. You tried to tell me, didn't you? I didn't answer. I didn't need to. He already knew. Rachel's voice dropped to a whisper. You're ruining everything. I finally spoke. You ruined it yourself. I just stopped pretending it wasn't happening. There was no yelling, no dramatic exit. Just silence. Rachel stood there in her perfect dress, surrounded by expensive flowers and people who no longer played along with her delusion. Her eyes darted from face to face looking for someone, anyone, who still believed her version of the story. No one stepped forward. Not even my mother. Margaret just looked away. And in that moment, I saw something I'd never seen in Rachel before. Fear. Because for once, the spotlight wasn't hers to control. And the only thing waiting in the shadows was the truth she had spent a lifetime hiding. I didn't stay for the rest of the wedding. There was nothing left to witness. No vows, no first dance, no tearful toasts. Just a room full of people pretending everything was fine until they couldn't anymore. I walked out of that lavish ballroom with my heels clicking softly against the marble, the sound oddly grounding. I passed the hallway where they tried to seat me like an afterthought. I paused there for just a second. Then kept walking. Not out of anger, not out of spite. Out of peace. Because when the people who are supposed to love you the most show you over and over again that they don't see you, don't value you, you don't owe them another seat at your table. You owe yourself freedom? Rachel's perfect day had unraveled, not because I caused a scene but because I didn't play my part anymore. Sometimes the strongest revenge isn't loud. It's leaving quietly, knowing you told the truth and finally letting go of the version of yourself they tried to keep small. And if you've ever been that forgotten daughter, the invisible one, the afterthought, I want you to hear this. You're not the problem. You're just finally done pretending to be.